attacked American military sites. So, you know, sounds like a good one-way ticket to me. And also the fact of this military order number 1, where you have a secret military tribunal, no right of appeal, no right of comment. They declare national security, and the whole thing is just, you know, in a black hole from then on.
So you have a lawyer, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I get legal aid here because I'm unemployed. You get free legal advice.
Okay. And what has your lawyer, I mean, I don't know whether you're at liberty to say or how they're going to be sort of supporting you in this?
We felt that District Judge Nicholas Evans, who ruled in my last hearing, didn't really properly address all of the main points we brought up. I'm not sure if he's really qualified or experienced enough to have properly addressed them, perhaps. That's why he didn't. So we feel that we've got a better chance on the appeal of getting things changed. Also, we're actually trying to get the law changed, because it's not just about me, it's about many other people. And the fact that you can be extradited without evidence. So we're trying to get judicial reviews in motion and put some pressure on, and we've got petitions going, etc., etc.
Okay, and you have a website, isn't that right?
That's right, yeah, freegary.org.uk.
Okay, very good. So maybe you can tell me what it is that you sort of thought when you saw the non-terrestrial officer list.
I thought, wow, you know, I'm really onto something here. But that, along with the material transfer thing, was the only 2 things I found. And bear in mind, this is, I mean, 99% of the time you find nothing, absolutely nothing. I was trawling these systems for years, and obviously there were times I did know where I was, but it was, you know, very, like, I knew I was in the Pentagon, obviously.
Sure.
But a lot of the time, when you're first getting your entry into the fringes of the systems to try and obtain deeper entry and then, you know, leverage control, you were kind of shooting blind at first. And there's a chap over here, Peter Warren, an investigative journalist, who tells me that he went over to America to interview the top brass, and said, you know, to say to them, why are you pursuing this guy so vehemently? Why is this the first extradition in a hacking case ever? And someone apparently said to him, it's not because of, you know, what he's done and what he's saying, it's where he's been and what he may have seen that he's not saying. So. Okay,
well, let's pursue that for a second. Is there some stuff that you haven't revealed to
where he's been and what he may have seen that he's not saying? So.
Okay, well, let's pursue that for a second. Is there some stuff that you haven't revealed to the press, for example, that you might have come across that, you know, is sort of your ace in the hole that you're holding, you know, some cards you're holding?
If there was, I wouldn't tell you.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Fair enough. And there's a sense that if you have information that it would be stowed somewhere safe. Because, look, people disappear every day, isn't that right? So hopefully you protected yourself on some level.
I'm not going to disappear.
Yeah. Okay. So in a sense, are you actually considering yourself a bit of a warrior? You're fighting a battle?
No. I'm certainly in conflict. But
well, what I mean is like, in a sense, you're fighting a battle for disclosure when all's said and done in the acts that you've taken part in. Isn't that right?
I guess I am, but I get very impatient with this sort of cloak of grandness that a lot of people in this field tend to cloak themselves in. And to me, it's a job that has to be done. It has to be done, you know, pragmatically. So I don't really see myself as anything. I just want to get on. I want to beat this rap and then carry on following the UFO disclosure thing, but obviously through legitimate channels this time.
Okay. So, just out of curiosity, have you thought of writing a book?
I hadn't thought of it, and then John Wiley and Sons approached me, and they got me to write the blurb, you know, the new book proposal document, and write some stuff on the back, you know.
Sure.
Gary McKinnon tells us this, that, and the other. And they said, oh, great, you know, it sounds really good. Wow. And then they had a meeting with their legal department from stateside. It's an American-based company, ultimately. And that was it.
Oh, they
Doors
pulled
closed,
the. Oh, wow.
Gone, yeah.
Well, I've got some people in Hollywood that might be interested. How do you feel about that?
Really up for it. As long as I
Okay,
can
great.
stay in this country and film it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
So, as far as your background, you're not really a skilled, I don't know, educated IT guy. Is that correct? I mean, do I have that right?
I am skilled, but I've got no formal qualifications.
Uh-huh. But when you started this sort of search, had you worked in the field?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had my first computer at 14. Learned to program in BASIC, then I learned to program in assembler, and then didn't do any computing work for a long time, but it was a hobby. Graphics programming, OpenGL, artificial intelligence, games programming, and then went to study computing, but found I had a lack of ability at high-level maths, so I couldn't even start the computer science degree. So they bumped me down to a higher national diploma, and I still had trouble with high-level maths, so I had to leave that altogether, and just went to work in it. Got my first job with no experience whatsoever, apart from my own hobbyist experience, just installing and configuring Windows. Mm-hmm. And from then on, you get another contract, you get more experience, you do more stuff. And at that time, employers respected experience more than pieces of paper. And I found later on they started to respect the pieces of paper more, but I could sit next to 10 guys with MCSEs and whatever and be better than all of them put together just because of 20 odd years experience behind me. So.
Great. So you've done some game and artificial intelligence work as well?
Yeah, not for work, for pleasure. Genetic algorithms, fuzzy logic, that kind of stuff.
Fabulous. And I understand you're also into graphics.
Yeah.
You have a background in that as well.
I'm using OpenGL as a way to learn the C++ programming language because you get lots of visual feedback. It's a very rewarding way to learn something that's quite dry, really.
Huh. Okay, cool. So you're very self-taught in a lot of ways. Now, I'm just curious, have you had maybe the hacker community come out for you in any way?
Because I was never part of the scene, so to speak. I did contact a couple of chaps whom I saw in a news group posting what seemed like very well-informed and knowledgeable comments upon my case. And one of those chaps is now the guy that runs the Free Gary website. He's very knowledgeable, very worthwhile, very, very caring. Mm-hmm. One of these people that just seems to be sacrificing his entire self for the good of everyone else. And I've read some stuff that lots of hackers are angry. I've read that hackers have said, if Gary goes to jail in America, we'll hack the bejesus out of the American government. Please don't do that, chaps.
Do you have other people that are sort of in there batting for you, like family, friends?
I mean, my mum's a tower of strength, But I'm lucky enough to have 4 parents. I speak to my stepdad and my real dad a lot, and my stepmum, not quite so often because she still lives in Scotland. But yeah, friends incredibly supportive. I mean, having told me to stop doing what I was doing, they didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but they knew I was in places I shouldn't have been. And they're all saying, it's very silly, you shouldn't do that, and trying to discourage me from doing it. And then they were very angry when it first came out that I'd been caught. But yeah, they're incredibly supportive.
Okay.
And I think the best thing is when we just make jokes about it, because it's quite dark sometimes, thinking, God, I could be facing 60 years in jail. So it's
right.
good to keep a sense of humour.
Okay. When you do investigation for 2 years, I'm sure that, a lot of it sort of goes into the back of your head somewhere. And I was just curious whether or not, of course I don't know what you're reading lately or anything, but if you ever find things that collaborate what you might have come across, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, my story in itself, just that hacking story, I didn't find out, well, there was only a few items. So, there's nothing more that I've forgotten. That is all there is, the Excel spreadsheets and the picture. But you're absolutely right. Having read lots of stuff recently, I've had so many people get in contact with me, and thanks to all of them sending me books and DVDs and being unemployed and stuff, it's really nice to have something for your brain to chew over.
Sure.
And I did realise there were places I'd been, which I didn't know at the time, but I've since found out are apparently hotbeds of UFO activity. China Lake. Well,
certainly, I guess Johnson Space Center.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Johnson Space Center. A couple of NSA machines in Fort Meade as well, actually. So yeah, the stuff, I do think I probably was in places that were more sensitive than I realised at the time. I probably missed a whole lot of stuff.
So you did keyword searches, isn't that right?
Well, no, once you actually, you have to become, it's no good just being an administrator of the machine. You have to become what they call in a Microsoft network, the domain administrator, so you've got full control of the entire network. Once you've got that, you can run a program, I used one called Land Search, I think at the time, which just searches every single computer and picks up files of certain types. But unfortunately at that time it wasn't good enough to look for keywords within the files. So I had to get creative with file names. And,
Wow. So you could have just missed something that was top secret just because it was called, some innocuous name that didn't, trigger any idea.
And also I eventually realised there was one network I was on, I won't say which, where because of the technique of rather than going around with a CD and installing Windows in every machine individually, you create what's called an image, and you shoot that image across the network onto each machine. On this particular network, the image would be made with a blank administrator password, so I had 5,000 machines, all with blank administrator passwords. What was the question there?
How do you search something like that?
Password, so I had 5,000 machines, all with blank administrator passwords. What was the question there? How do
you search something like that?
Oh right, yeah, that's what I started to realise. This was just too huge a job for one person.
Right,
thought,
absolutely.
It could take me years and years and years. And it did become boring, because most of the time you find nothing. And also my relationship was going down the pan, I'd left my job, I was going down the pan, wasn't eating properly, wasn't washing properly. It was a proper unhealthy obsession.
So you were really motivated, though, on a certain level.
Yeah, I thought I was doing something that would ultimately be for the benefit of a lot of people. So.
Well, I think there are a lot of people out there that would support sort of the right to know on a certain level. Certainly free energy, and if we're sending officers off world then what are we doing using things like the space shuttle, the ancient machinery that's blowing up in space?
Yeah. And I think what you're saying about hacking to find stuff out, I think I wouldn't advise anyone to do it or anything like that, but there's plenty of times in the history where you can only gain freedom by breaking the law. Jesus himself, I remember in the Bible, telling people off where poor people were stealing food off the tables, and they were cutting their hands off, and he's like, yeah, they're poor, they're starving, let them steal a little bit, how's it going to hurt you?
Right. Would you do you envision a future for yourself?
I'd like for this whole thing to be dropped, or at least to be tried in my own country. That's the first thing. That's obviously taking up a lot of my energy at the moment. Beyond that, I'm absolutely fed up with fixing people's computers, and I'd like to follow my singing ambitions, which is where my main passion lies, singing and songwriting.
Oh, great. Okay.
I'm sick of machinery and technology and fast living and profit and
Okay. So is there anything else that you'd want to tell people that kind of about this experience, about where you were at those 2 years? Obviously it's a few years later, you're kind of older and wiser, but is there a message within what you were doing back then, kind of, if you can place yourself back then?
Always listen to your girlfriend.
Okay, I hear that. Very good. Okay, well, this is Carrie Cassidy, and we've been talking here with Gary McKinnon, and having a beer out in a pub, the back of a local pub here in London, on the outskirts. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
And I do have one other question. I'm wondering, do you think to this day that you've got organizations that are using that kind of administrative blank password, duplicating desktops?
Right. Well, I'm not sure, but I mean, is it the Government Accounting Office over there, or the General Accounting Office? They put out a report every year appraising federal security and critical national infrastructure. And I read that every year, and every year it doesn't get any better.
Wow.
So I think I'd stake a hefty amount of money that if I went and did that again today, that you could probably do the same thing again. Yeah.
So what that actually means is that there could be easily some people out there that are coming across the same things you are.
I reckon. Yeah.
They're just not getting caught.
Yeah.
Right.